Do airplanes have horns? But that is not for the road rage which we see. Do you really need to be a math genius to be a pilot? Hi, I'm Captain Siddharth Sharma. I've been flying for over 20 years now. I've flown for three different airlines. I've flown the wide body Boeing 777s, currently flying the Boeing 737s narrow body aircrafts.
Oh my God! Wow!
इतने साल की फ्लाइंग के दौरान there are a lot of questions that have been asked again and again. I've made a list of those frequently asked questions per se, and I'm here to answer those.
अभी मजा आएगा ना भिड़ो.
So let's get started. One of the most frequently asked questions, number one. Ever had a UFO moment while flying? Not really UFO moment, but yes, there was this flight which I remember always because it has happened only twice in my whole career that we are flying from Calicut to Dubai and we took off into the westerly direction or flying the Arabian Sea. I just saw outside and I saw a shooting star. After some time again I saw one and it continuously kept happening. Immediately I went on the PA system. I informed all my passengers. We were flying 200 odd passengers to Dubai and I informed all of them that probably today is the luckiest day that you've been flying because today you are experiencing something called as meteor shower. Imagine you are flying for 3.5 hours and you are continuously seeing shooting stars all around you. That was the kind of experience that meteor shower was, and it was probably close to witnessing an UFO moment. What has been your most terrifying moment in the cockpit? Probably it was a flight from Bombay to Ranchi, and after takeoff we were all settled. I was having my dinner and captain was flying. I was a first officer back then, and suddenly out of nowhere the alarm started ringing. Autopilot got disconnected and it was kind of a startle effect for us. At that point in time I realized that what Sully was talking about during the course of investigation when he talked about the human factor. Captain took over control. I put my tray away and we started to figure out that what is happening. Thankfully, we were flying the Boeings, so we could revert to our basic manual flying. We had an engineer on board. She took some time to understand what has happened and she was like, I've never seen it before. So we were like, okay, no worries, we'll just fly manually. After landing, the aircraft got grounded. It was a routine A to B return flight for us. That particular day, we had a layover in Ranchi. That was an unplanned layover. And probably this experience which I had, which was nowhere written in the books, we were not at all prepared for it. This was the most scariest or close to scariest moment you can say while flying that I have had. What's the worst weather you've ever flown through? One of the most unforgettable moments when it comes to weather was a flight from Amsterdam to Toronto. There was a snowstorm in Toronto and all the flights were holding. We were waiting for the snowstorm to pass, but it did not. So we diverted to Montreal. We landed and we were waiting for the weather to pass in Toronto. And while waiting, the engineer went into the cockpit and he just switched off the APU air supply. We could feel that minus 15 degree temperature coming all through the aircraft. I immediately went inside the cockpit, put on the APU bleed air again. The temperatures were controlled, and then we decided to again start a flight towards Toronto after we got a information that weather is improving. Landed into Toronto, went to the gates, the aero bridge where the aero bridge is connected. We just go inside the gate and we park ourselves. We just couldn't do it for 1.5 hours because it was snowing so much that every time they would clear the snow and the snow would accumulate again and we just couldn't enter our gate. This was probably one of the most difficult experiences when it comes to weather. Are there foods pilots avoid before flying? So personally speaking, I don't eat before flying. If I'm flying in the night, I would had my lunch, a late lunch probably, and then I'll not eat. But yes, per se, when we fly, there are certain foods which we are told to avoid, and those are seafood or salads, anything raw in nature. Because with raw foods comes the possibility of food poisoning. Do pilots actually sleep during long haul flights? Well, the answer is yes. पायलट है, कोई ऑटो पायलट थोड़ी ना है कि चलते ही जाएंगे.
कैसा लगा मेरा मजाक?
Let's just say there's a flight from Bombay to San Francisco, about 14 hours of flight, and there are 4 pilots operating. So one set of pilots will do the takeoff, and probably the next set of pilots will do the landing, and in between there is something called as controlled rest. So we decide the time, and we have some secret chambers, you can say, where we go for a rest. The bunk beds are there, and personally speaking, मेरे को तो बहुत अच्छी नींद आती है bunk beds में. When I used to fly the 777, I used to enjoy my controlled rest. 3.5 hours of deep sleep I go into. Some people find it difficult because it is a small space. So some people are claustrophobic. Your full attention is required when you are going in for landing. And at that point in time, you need to be fully rested. And that is the reason pilots are legally allowed to sleep or have their controlled rest during a long haul flight. Moving on to the next question, very frequently asked one. Can autopilot truly fly a plane on its own? Well, the answer is no. अगर ऐसा होता तो pilots की ज़रूरत ही क्या थी? So let's talk about the need of an autopilot. What is an autopilot? Why is it required in a commercial airliners which we fly in? Autopilot is a tool to assist, not a tool to depend on. Autopilot is very much required for the workload management, and we as commercial airline pilots require autopilots when we go into the airspaces where we fly into the high altitude flying. Do airplanes have horns like cars?
कितने तेजस्वी लोग हैं हमारे पास, कितने शानदार विचार रखते हैं.
It is so funny to answer this question. Yes, we do have horns like cars in the airplanes. The horns are there to attract attention of the ground crew or the engineers which are working around an aircraft, because they are not always on the headsets. So yes, there is a horn, there is a button which we can push, not to have the road rage which you see on the roads. There is no road rage on the airplanes. So let's move on to our next question. Is flying a passion or just a job for most pilots? Well, let me answer that. This is one of the few jobs that is truly passion driven. We don't feel like working. Flying is our passion and we get paid for that. This is one of the few jobs where there's no as such monotony, because you're meeting new people every day. As a captain, if I'm flying with my first officer, I might not fly with him for another month, 2 months, or maybe 3 months. What does flying through clouds actually feel like? So let me differentiate clouds. There are some clouds near which we will not go because we have weather radar on boards, and we get to know that these clouds are associated with turbulence, and there are procedures to avoid those clouds altogether. But for the other clouds, it's a beautiful and amazing feeling to approach those clouds and to penetrate the layer of clouds and seeing the ground again entering into the cloud. It's a beautiful feeling. Even after 20 years, I really enjoy going through those clouds. There's one fascinating story. My daughter was small and she used to ask me, why do you go for flights? I used to tell her, I'm going to pop the clouds. I just love to pop the clouds and I'm going to pop them.
Nice.
So what are some of the most challenging air routes in the world? So I would say routes are not challenging. There are some routes in which workload management is more. Just like we used to fly from Europe to US and Canada side, that is crossing the North Atlantic. These are called the NATS route, North Atlantic routes. It is a unidirectional route. You take off from US in the night and land in Europe in the morning. And there's a fascinating story behind landing in the morning only in European countries, because the people around the airports are sleeping. So you are not supposed to land in the night, and that is the truth. You can Google it. And rest, I would say, routes are not challenging, but yes, the airports are challenging. So there are some airports in India like Calicut, it's a tabletop runway. Bangalore, it's again a tabletop runway. Then Leh Airport, Thois in Bhutan, Paro Airport is very tricky, and you require special training to go to these airfields. Pilots are trained in the simulators, on the aircraft, on how to approach these runways, how to land on these runways. And so with these trainings, you become proficient to land into these airports. So the next question, what's the fastest or highest altitude you've ever reached? So when it comes to fastest, as pilots, I would tell you it's not like cars where you keep a track on what speed you've attained. But yes, I would say I've in tailwinds, I must have achieved a speed of around 580 or 590, close to 600 ground speed, which translates to again close to 1100 kilometers per hour. But we do not keep a track of that. When it comes to altitude, I've flown a 777, and the service ceiling is 43,000. Is flying over the Himalayas really that risky? So I would say yes, it is risky. Altitude wise, there's no problem. Most commercial aircrafts have a ceiling of close to 40,000 feet, and Himalayas sit at around 29,000. So altitude wise, we can overfly them. But in aviation, we always have to be prepared for the what if moment. What if something happens? Engine failure, cabin depressurization, some medical emergency, and you have to descend down and divert to the nearest airport. So over Himalayas, you cannot really descend down. In case of a cabin depressurization, you cannot attain an altitude of close to 10,000 feet, which is considered safe for passengers. The availability of the airports, that pose a very big problem, because there are no airports in and around Himalayas. So these are some of the few problems which we face as pilots and aviation industry. And these are the reasons we don't fly over Himalayas. We usually tend to avoid them. Moving on to our next question, which is, what's the real deal with the Bermuda Triangle? World is full of superstition and myths, but when it comes to flying over the Bermuda Triangle, there is no such directive from ICAO, FAA or other authorities, or for that matter, there is no such training involved while overflying the Bermuda Triangle. So the next question, do you follow any superstitions before a flight? Answer is no. But yes, I've seen some people touching the aircraft while getting inside, some people putting their right foot first while entering into the aircraft. Yes, sometimes we fly over temples, and then obviously we fold our hands, we inform the passengers. Let's just say we are flying over Shady, I will make a passenger announcement that we're flying over Shady, and things like that. But there's no such superstition that I follow during the flight. So with this, we will end our FAQ session, and if you've got any questions, do drop in the comment section and we will get back to you with the answers.